Oh, that's another chase done. Goddamn monsters. I'm sick of all these chase sequences. Good job I got my camera though. Review all the footage. Actually, why am I carrying this still? It's only slowing me down. I mean, if I got rid of it, I could run a lot quicker. Don't even need the thing anyway. It runs out of batteries every 5 minutes. Piece of shit. I'll just get rid of it. I'll get a new one when I get home. Oh, I can't wait to get out of this place. Oh shit, here they come again. Hey guys, welcome to /. We're back with another review, and this time it is Outlast 2. First off, I'd like to say it's good to see that this series is sort of becoming an anthology series. With the second game, we're in a different situation again, although there are little ties to the first game. It takes on a new scenario, a new situation, with new characters. The story begins and revolves around the player, Blake, on the camera. That is who we play as. His wife, Lynn, who is also a fellow journalist, and a past friend called Jessica, who died mysteriously. Blake and Lynn are going to the mountain areas to investigate after a woman had died while pregnant. So the start of the game sees the helicopter that we're in crash after a mysterious flash of light, and that will become a key point to the story later on in the game. You survive the crash, but Lynn gets taken away, and your pilot gets skinned alive and left on a tree. This is the start of the game, and it's the beginning of the nightmare for Blake. I've got to be honest with my review. These are totally independent reviews, and I have to say I did feel a little bit disappointed in the game. It wasn't quite what I expected it to be. The story for me lacked any sort of real punch. That's possibly because Red Barrel wanted the story to be open-ended and be interpreted in different ways by different players, and I commend them for that sort of effort, but overall I actually thought that it didn't work the way they presented the story. I wanted to find out things, I wanted to know the answers, and it didn't feel like it came along for me in the right way. You come up against 3 villains during the game, and I felt that their motivations weren't very clear. Basically, they all just seemed to be crazy. Part of the problem possibly was because of the way that the story is presented. Now, obviously, you've got your cutscenes, you've got your dialogue, your voice acting, but we've got to remember that Outlast 2 is not on the full-scale budget of a AAA game, and I think the developers to cut back on production costs with, let's say, voice acting, which can be a costly exercise, they put a lot of their story into documents that you find throughout the game. Now, this is fine, and really I should probably have read these more, but I don't want to play a game and just read walls and walls of text, just reams of text. There was a lot of these things to pick up, and obviously they would probably flesh out the story, but I didn't want to have to stand reading them. I might go back into the game and read them now that I've completed it. I have read a little bit about the story afterwards, and that's what led me to believe that Red Barrels did want this to be an open-ended sort of story to leave up to your imagination. Basically, too long, didn't read. Throughout the game there's a lot of chase sequences, possibly too many. This would have been fine if it had been balanced up with other gameplay styles, but unfortunately it just seems like 85% of the game is just you being chased by monsters and you have to just run away as fast as you can. The problems that this leads us into is that you're rushing in segments, so when you want to like duck under something or crawl under something, because you're rushing, you don't always see these things on your first time. This basically leads the game to being a trial and error sort of game, which I thought was a negative point really. I do have to say though that the latter stages of the game, when you're in the mines, I won't give anything away spoiler wise, but when you're in the mines it becomes a bit of a hide and seek horror game. If you're a fan of that sort of gameplay, it really comes into its own at this point. I'm particularly a fan of that sort of horror and this was certainly the best stage of the entire game. There are also a lot of dream sequences or sort of imaginations, hallucinations. These take you back to your school days, and you're more or less with your friend Jessica, who, as I mentioned, had died previously. These segments look great. They're such eye candy, very photorealistic. Walking down the school hallways and out into the snow courtyards. This makes the game look truly amazing. It's a shame that the rest of the game in the main portion doesn't actually look as good as this. I don't know if that's just because of it needs to look grittier, because you're in like forest areas and mines and stuff, but it certainly doesn't look as good as these dream segments in the school. I have to give credit to the music score. I think that is particularly excellent in this game. Certainly when Marta is chasing after you with her huge sort of pickaxe thing that she's got, it's kind of like a cross as well. When she's coming at you, the music ramps up and you get these long sort of string segments, really eerie string sounds, and that adds to the tension so much when Marta is around. It really puts the creeps in you. Another little complaint of mine for Outlast 2 is that there are segments when you're passing through villages and you'll see a lot of NPCs just stood there, just looking, and you can sort of venture out into their view and they won't do anything to you. They'll just stand and look at you. But if you approach them, if you get a little bit closer, they do attack you. Whilst this is happening though, there are also other NPCs in the village that are actively hunting for you. They follow routes and they're actively looking for you, and these guys will, once they see you, they'll just come at you with their knives and start chopping at you. For me, this led to some confusing moments where I didn't know whether I could venture out into the open. I didn't know if one character would spot me and come and attack me, or if another one that I saw would leave me alone. It became very confusing. That kind of, to me, is like the developers changing the rules on you midway through the game, and I don't think that makes for very good gameplay. I think that the Outlast series could benefit from utilising possibly some sort of puzzle format. This could really flesh out the gameplay and add another element in there. It's kind of cliche for horror games to have puzzles, but I think that the Outlast series would benefit from adding them in, just to break up the game and make it sort of different segments, give you a little bit of a break from the chase sequences. As I've said, I wasn't a fan of the whole game being chase segments, and I think that the game would have benefited from having more moments that were different. So you could have had moments, more of the hide and seek moments, the hide and seek horror, that worked really well in the latter stages of the game. So more of that could have benefited this game. It would have made the chase sequences more dramatic. For instance, if you'd just done a whole segment where you were hiding, it was kind of like the hide and seek thing, or it was more like stealth gameplay, and then you had a chase sequence at the end of that would really ramp the tension up. Okay, so to conclude, it sounds like kind of a very negative review of the game, and actually it's not a terrible game. It's well worth purchasing, I would say. At £25 currently on the PlayStation Store, that's not too bad. We know it's not a AAA game. It took me roughly 6 hours to complete, which you would expect maybe from a game like this at that price point. You've got to remember that a lot of AAA games with single player campaigns are only 8 hours long, although they do have bonus content such as multiplayer, which isn't really feasible for a game like Outlast. Personally, I would say that the game is worth a playthrough if you're a fan of the genre, but you wouldn't be doing yourself any harm if you held out just a little while to get the game once the prices come down. So my final score for Outlast 2 is a 6 out of 10. Ultimately, it didn't feel like the game that it could have been to me. but there are redeeming factors in there, and I think if you're a fan of these sorts of horror games, you will find enjoyment in Outlast 2. Okay, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe for more reviews from /. We've got many more game reviews planned, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.